The day my CEO called me a thief, I almost believed him. The room was full. Board members, senior managers, legal team. And he looked directly at me and said, "She stole from this company." The silence that followed felt heavier than the accusation. I didn't defend myself. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Because I knew something he didn't. The FBI was already in the building, and they weren't here for me. I worked as head of internal compliance at Arden Biotech. Not glamorous, not public, but powerful. My job was simple. Find financial irregularities before regulators did. I had access to everything. Vendor payments, executive expense accounts, acquisition documents. For 3 years I kept the company clean, or at least I tried. 6 months before the accusation, I noticed small anomalies. Tiny discrepancies in R&D allocation budgets. Funds labeled equipment testing, routed through shell consulting firms. Errors. But patterns don't lie. The same vendor names kept appearing. Different subsidiaries, same bank routing numbers, and one signature approving those transfers. CEO Daniel Mercer. I didn't jump to conclusions. I gathered evidence quietly. Audit trails, payment timestamps, email approvals, cross-border wire confirmations. It took me weeks to confirm what I feared. Millions were being moved, not to improve research, but into offshore holding accounts, and the shell companies connected to Daniel's brother-in-law. I scheduled a private meeting with him, closed door, no witnesses. "I found irregular transfers," I said calmly. He leaned back, cold smile. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm asking for clarification." He stared at me for a long moment, then said softly, "Be careful. Warning." 2 weeks later, my system access was limited. Not removed, just restricted. Suddenly, I couldn't see executive-level transfers. Then HR scheduled a performance review. Interesting timing. I realized something important that day. This wasn't going to be handled internally, so I did what compliance officers are trained to do. I documented everything. Encrypted copies, external storage, chain of custody timestamps, and then I contacted a federal financial crimes hotline. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just facts. They asked for proof. I gave it. 3 months passed, no visible changes. Daniel acted normal, confident, smiling at shareholder meetings. Then one Monday morning, an emergency board meeting was called. All executives required, including me. When I walked in, Daniel was already standing. In his eyes. "We've identified internal theft," he announced. My stomach tightened. Company funds have been leaked to external authorities. Murmurs spread. Then he said it. Our head of compliance accessed confidential data and shared it illegally. Every face turned toward me. She stole proprietary information. The word hung in the air. Thief. I could feel the weight of judgment, but I stayed still. Daniel continued, "We will be pursuing legal action." He thought he had flipped the narrative, turned whistleblower into criminal. But then, the boardroom doors opened. Not dramatically, just quietly. 2 agents stepped inside. Dark suits, calm faces. "Daniel Mercer?" one of them asked. The room froze. Daniel blinked. "Yes?" "We're with the FBI." Silence exploded. The agent continued, "We have a federal warrant regarding financial misappropriation and wire fraud." Daniel laughed nervously. There must be some mistake. The agent placed documents on the table. Funds transferred to offshore entities under shell corporations. We have traced the accounts. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the second agent looked around the room.
Carter, he said. That was me.
Yes, I replied steadily. We appreciate your cooperation. Cooperation. Not theft. Not crime. Cooperation. Daniel's face drained of color. You went behind my back, he whispered. I met his eyes calmly. I went above your authority. Agents escorted him out. Not aggressively, not violently, but publicly. The board watched in shock, the same room where I was called a thief. The chairman finally spoke. Is this confirmed? One of the agents nodded. Multi-million-dollar fraud investigation. Suddenly the narrative flipped. The board members who avoided my eyes earlier now looked at me differently. Not suspicious, not fearful, relieved. Because if Daniel was guilty, then the leak wasn't theft. It was protection. But the twist, I hadn't exposed everything yet. Because while investigating Daniel's transfers, I found something else. A quiet pattern. Smaller payments, authorized by 2 board members, kickbacks disguised as consulting bonuses. They weren't the masterminds, but they were involved, and they thought Daniel would take the fall alone. They were wrong. The FBI investigation expanded. Weeks later, subpoenas reached those same board members. One resigned immediately. The other attempted damage control, but paper trails don't disappear. Eventually, federal charges were filed. Daniel faced fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction. The board restructured leadership. Interim CEO appointed. And me? I was asked to step into temporary oversight of compliance expansion. Funny how quickly thief becomes protector. But here's the final twist. 3 months later, the company stabilized, rebounded. Investors praised transparency. Then the chairman called me into his office. We owe you an apology, he said quietly. I nodded. You do. He winced slightly. We'd like you to stay. Chief Risk Officer. Permanent executive seat. Board access. Power. I thought about that moment when Daniel called me a thief. In front of everyone. How quickly people believed him. How easily silence spreads when power speaks. I'll stay, I said calmly, but with full independence. He agreed immediately, because now they understood something. Compliance isn't decoration, it's defense. The day Daniel called me a thief, he thought humiliation would silence me. He thought fear would protect him. But fear doesn't erase evidence. It just delays consequences. 6 months later, Daniel was sentenced. White-collar prison. Disgraced headline. And the company? Stronger than before. One evening, as I walked through the now renovated boardroom, I paused at the same chair where I sat during that accusation. I didn't feel anger anymore. Clarity. Because sometimes revenge isn't screaming. It isn't fighting. It isn't exposing someone dramatically. Sometimes revenge is documentation, patience, and letting the truth walk in through the door with a federal badge. He called me a thief, and minutes later, the FBI called him a suspect.